Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing about financial management and budgeting in library and information centers. We know financial management is a very common topic and which is applicable to our daily life also. For example, for day to day life, we need to know what is our income, what is our expenditure, and what is our savings. So, all these are part of financial management. Unless or until we do not know what is our income, what is our expenditure, and what is our saving, we cannot manage our life according to our objective. So, today what we are going to cover or what we are going to learn? We are going to learn about the different features of a proficient financial management system, factors to be considered for distribution of funds for libraries and information centers. We will also know about different financial estimation techniques, financial sources and financial sources of library information center, principles of library expenditure, budget and its importance. We will also know about UGC guidelines for institutional development plans for the higher education institutions 2024. Why we will know this? We will know certain features and emphasis given for the development of higher educational institutions, because according to that we can place our budget. We will also know about budget document format, characteristics of an efficient budget presentation, then what is the objective of our course? The objective of the course is gaining knowledge about features of a proficient financial management system, factors to be considered for distribution of funds for libraries, financial estimation techniques, financial sources of library and information centers, the principles of library expenditure, budget, its importance, and UGC guidelines for institutional development plans for higher education. We will also get an idea about different budget document formats, characteristics of an effective budget presentation. After this unit, what the learners will be able to do? They will be able to develop a well-planned financial management system for the libraries, considering different financial estimation techniques, the principle of library expenditure and the UGC guidelines for institutional development plans for higher educational institution. Therefore, after this unit, the learners will be able to know the different features of financial management unit, but different aspects of budgeting, and they will also be able to apply this concept in managing financial aspects in library and information center. So before we start, first of all we need to know what is financial management. Financial management means obviously it is a part of management technique. Therefore, all the general principles which are applicable in management, those are also applicable to this financial management aspectives. Financial management encompasses the planning, organizing, directing, controlling of financial operations, which include the procurement and utilization of funds within the information organization. It involves applying universal management concepts to the financial resources of any organization, and the same is applicable for library and information centers too. Libraries and information organizations which are service oriented. Yes, library and information centers are service oriented and not for profit organizations. So, they utilize financial management to oversee and regulate their revenues and expenditures, aiming primarily to provide satisfactory services to their users. So, library and information centers are different from other organizations. How they are different? Because here mostly we give services for the users. We do not make any profit, or our primary aim is not to make any profit but to provide service. So user is the prime concern for the library and information center. So while managing the finances of a library and information center, we need to focus on its objective, that is, it should be service oriented rather than profit oriented. Therefore, the library and information organizations which are service oriented and non-profit organization, their budget should be, or financial management should be planned according to their objectives. Now, what are the different parts of the financial management system? As I have already mentioned, it is like other management. Therefore, all the general objectives of management system is also applicable to the financial management part. That includes reporting, controlling, auditing, planning, budgeting, resource allocation, operating and monitoring, and evaluating. For all the managerial aspects, continuous evaluation is very important part. For this, for budgeting or financial management also, we need to evaluate constantly whether the user's need or our goal are achieved or not. What are the features of a proficient financial management system? Obviously, while we are planning some financial management system, there should be some objectives. So, we have to, the features of a proficient financial management system should attain both immediate and extended objective. That means short term objective as well as long term objective. It should simplify payment processes for purchased resources. If the payment process is not simplified, then the purchase may take a long time. It should facilitate adherence to accounting standards. Accounting standards, we should always follow the standards which are already prefixed. Financial management also having some predefined standards, or some organization may have some predefined standards. A financial management system should always adhere to the standards. The financial management system for a library and information system should always assist library personnel in budget preparation. It should remove all the accounting mistakes. It should try to remove all the accounting mistakes. At least it can reduce the errors. The financial management system should guarantee effective invoicing processes for sales of goods and services. For library and information services, there might be many services like charges for photocopying service, or charges for recovering the lost cost of a lost book. So all this should be proficiently managed. The financial management system should reduce duplication in record maintenance. This is also another important feature of the financial management system. Now, obviously, there are certain factors that need to be considered for distribution of funds for libraries. As we are talking about financial management, we need some sources from where we will receive the fund. But before processing for the fund generation or distribution of funds, we need to know, or we need to consider certain factors. What are the factors that we need to consider for library and information centers? First is user population and its components. Obviously, while giving the budget or taking any decision regarding financial management, we need to know who are the users of the libraries, for whom the library is giving the services. For example, a university library, the users are the research scholar mainly, the students, the faculty members. It can also include outside academicians or officials from the organization. So user population and its component is very important while considering the distribution of funds for the libraries. Next is materials to be acquired. As the technology is improving day by day, earlier what library used to have, mainly libraries used to have print resources, that is print books and print journals. But with the advancement of technology, the libraries are acquiring many types of resources. What are they? They are e-books, e-journals, e-databases. Also, libraries do not forget to purchase print books and print journals. So, what materials to be acquired, that is also an important point to consider. Next is what services are to be provided to its users and what is the objective. For a university library, we all know that is mainly for research studies. Therefore, what services to be provided, like reading facilities, lending facilities, photocopying facilities, or they must have Wi-Fi access, all, or they must have access to online databases, electronic resources. All these things need to be considered. And what is the objective of the institution? That is also a motto. Objective of an institution like university library should always emphasize on research or academic activities. So while distributing the funds, we need to distribute the fund in such a way so that all the objectives are fulfilled efficiently. We must also know the unsatisfied service pressures. Obviously, while the library and information centers are trying to develop their services day by day, but there must be some points where the users still remain unsatisfied or they need more advanced services. We also need to consider this point while making the fund distribution. Established national and international standards for quality in services, often expressed as minima of materials, personnel and operational funds for a given size of library. So if there are predefined standards by some standardized agency like UGC, like state government, central government, or IFLA, UNESCO, if they are having some predefined standards for distribution of fund among library and information centers, then those standards has to be followed. Another point is increase in price of information resources and inflation. So, we need to consider how the price of information resources are increasing day by day and how inflation is affecting the day-to-day life as well as the cost of library and information resources. So, before distributing fund, we need to consider all these points. Unless or until we consider all these points, we cannot distribute the money efficiently and we cannot achieve the objectives. Now we will know the different financial estimation techniques. What are the different financial estimation techniques? The number one is per capita method. So what the name suggests? Per capita. This method sets a minimum amount per capita that is considered necessary to provide standard library services. Common factors to determine the per capita library finance are the educational and cultural standards of a community, the expectation of its future needs, the per capita income of the society, the average cost of published reading material, the salary levels of library staff, the safest, most method is to calculate library finance per head as per the head of the population. So what does this per capita method suggest? It says it is the safest method. You have to calculate the population to whom we are serving. As per, you can allocate some fund. For example, if we take the recommendation of the University Grant Commission Library Committee, which was given in 1957, the recommendations were given in 1957. It is saying rupees 15 per student and rupees 200 per teacher for acquiring reading materials for its library. Therefore, UGC is recommending in 1957 rupees 15 per student and rupees 200 per teacher. Thus, if there are 300 students, we have to multiply rupees 15 with 300, and if there are 20 teachers, we have to multiply rupees 200 into 20 to get an insight about the expenditure or the fund that we need to allot. We can also consider the recommendations of the Kothari Education Committee, which was set up in 1964 to 66. This committee says the university should spend each year about rupees 25 for each student. It is saying rupees 25 and rupees 300 per teacher. So we can see an increase of rupees 10 for student and rupees 100 for teachers from University Grant Commission's recommendations, which was given in 1957. But the Kothari Commission is saying rupees 25 for student and rupees 300 for teacher to be allocated. Now we will discuss about the recommendations of Ranganathan. Ranganathan is saying per capita expenditure for public libraries should be 50 paisa for the people who are taking the services of the public libraries, and Ranganathan recommended this amount in the year 1950. So what is the amount? Rupees 50 paisa per capita expenditure for per user of the public libraries. So what we need to consider while considering the per capita method? This figure must change, must be evaluated with the time gap or at a regular interval, because within the time or within a time gap, the per capita amount needs to be revised as the cost is also increasing day by day. But this per capita method is a very simple method. The next financial estimation technique. What is the next financial estimation technique? It is proportional method. This method assumes that authorities provide sufficient funding for libraries from their regular budgets and that certain minimum limits are set. A common indicator to measure adequate support is the percentage of institutional budget and allocate for library purposes. In India, as suggested by UGC, 6.5% to 10% of a university's budget has to be considered as a reasonable expenditure for its library. So therefore, what we understand from the name, it is suggested proportional method. What is proportional method? Where a certain amount, we can consider a certain percentage of money to be allotted for the library from the total amount of institutional allocated money. So what is the recommendation of UGC? Recommendation of UGC is 6.5% to 10% for a university library. And Ranganathan suggested also the same, it is from 6% to 10% of the total budget for public libraries. This proportional method of budgeting is troublesome for the special libraries as they need costly and high-end technical equipment. Therefore, certain amount of allocation of the library budget cannot always fulfill their requirements. The third financial estimation technique is the method of details. According to this method, all items of expenditure of a library are accounted for while preparing the financial estimates. That means every details is considered. It is of two types, recurring or current expenditure and non-recurring or capital expenditure. For assessing the finances of public libraries, Ranganathan proposed using the circulation of reading materials. So, circulation of reading materials plays a very important part in deciding the amount to be allocated for the libraries. Therefore, Ranganathan proposed using the circulation of reading materials as the basis for both current and recurring expenditure as well as for non-recurring or capital expenditures. The Government of India Advisory Committee for Libraries in 1957 adopted a similar approach to estimate the financial needs for establishing a nationwide public library system. Therefore, Government of India Advisory Committee for Libraries also emphasized on circulation services. The UGC Library Committee in 1957 in its report recommended a staffing formula to determine the necessary number of library personnel of various categories needed for college and university libraries. Therefore, this method is also applicable to decide the number of staff or human resources. Accordingly, it can also decide the budget to be allocated or financial amount to be allocated for the university libraries. The total funds needed to cover staff cost can be calculated using this formula, using the method of details formula. So, we have covered the different techniques required for calculating the library finance. Next, we will know the financial sources of library and information centers like public libraries, academic libraries or special libraries, from where they get these financial resources. For public libraries, the government sources like state government or central government can provide some fund. Other than regular funds, they can also get some ad hoc funds. Another source is library cess. What is library cess? Where the state government implies some tax on the people and keep that tax for development of the public libraries. Another source for budget or financial resources for public libraries is subscription, then income generated by the public libraries, from where this income can be generated from reprographic services or the digitizing services. Another source is endowments. In India, the states are grouped into two categories, that is as per statutory system and as per non-statutory system. States which have library legislation, they falls under statutory system and receives fund from various levels of government agencies as per norms. But states which do not have library legislation fall under non-statutory system, and government is not bound by law to promote activities of public libraries in that states. But as it is educational related matter, government can provide fund as and when required or as per their use. Now, what are the sources of finance from for university libraries? For university libraries, the sources are grants allocated out of university budget. An important part of university library budget is funds from university budget. Allocations are made normally directly to the library. There are two types of grants, recurring and non-recurring. Grants from UGC. The university also gets special grants from UGC which are passed on to the library for various purposes such as buildings, furniture, equipment, purchase of books, etc. State governments also provide matching grants sometimes as per requirement of the UGC. It comes under university budget. Financial sources of library and information centers in university libraries are also grants from central and state government, endowment and gifts, library fee such as development fee, security, etc., fines and miscellaneous sources like overdue fines, sale of publications or information products, sale of waste paper, charges of photocopying and micrographic services. The university libraries, in addition to regular grants, also receive ad hoc grants from time to time from various sources. What are the financial sources for school libraries? Library membership fee collected from people, equal contribution from management, matching contribution from government or local body, other gift or special grant that may at any time be received specially for the library, and donations from public. The state government or any other education authority administering the school should meet the initial expenditure on setting up of the school library, including cost of new library buildings and initial expenditure on fittings and books covering the basic stock needed as a nucleus for library activities. Completely dependent on the parent organization for receiving funds as they exist for the sole purpose of giving information support to the parent organization. This is happening for the special libraries. They completely depend on the parent organization for the fund, and special provisions are usually made when the parent organizations take some new project. Other than these, special libraries can also get some gift or grant from special institutions. Now, the principles of library expenditure. These are the principles of economy, principle of maximum aggregate benefit, principle of advanced planning, principle of equitable allocation. What does the principle of economy suggest? Principle of economy suggests we need to consider in what optimum way we can allocate the financial resource. There should not be any misuse. Optimum use of economical use or optimum use of fund is always helpful. And the maximum aggregate benefit, it suggests we have to find out some alternative in which the fund allocated can help the maximum number of people to get service. Principle of advanced planning suggests we should always plan the financial planning in very advanced way so that timely steps can be taken and the goal can be fulfilled. Principle of equitable allocation suggests we should distribute the fund considering in mind that all the areas are covered. Now, what is budget and what is its importance? The term budget is derived from the term budget, which means sack of pouch. It is a statement of the estimated receipts and expenditure of the government in respect of a financial year. Budgeting plays a crucial role in library management for several reasons like resource allocation, planning, control, performance evaluation and accountability. Now we will know about the UGC guidelines for institutional development plans for higher education institutions. It is suggested in the year 2024. What it suggests? It provides emphasis on library web page development, online blogs and sites for information dissemination, Wi-Fi access in campus, internet usage, online information resources, digital library, digital resource center, plagiarism detection software, consortia for shared databases and library access. So, from these points, we can understand that emphasis is being given in digital platforms so that the information resources can be accessed from anywhere and anytime, irrespective of the geographical barrier or time barrier. Therefore, while preparing budget, These points are to be considered in addition to the traditional items like printed books, printed journals, contingency items, salaries, etc. Now we need to know what is the format of a budget document. Budget document should have title page, content page, mandate of the library. That is what is the prime motto of the library. Synopsis of the budget, complete budget should be presented in a tabular form. Part 1 of the budget should comprise of goals and objectives of the library briefly, activities and achievements of the previous year, anticipated activities and proposed goals for the budgeted year, future projections. Part 2 of the budget should contain budgetary estimates, recurring and non-recurring, and item-wise estimate should be given, which should be infrastructural development, salaries and allowances, information resources, print and electronic, library services, machinery and equipment, stationery and consumables, maintenance and security, conveyance, postage, contingencies and miscellaneous. Obviously, while placing the budget, proper justification should be provided. So what is the characteristics of an effective budget presentation from the perspective of decision makers? So what decision makers look for in a budget and what is the characteristics of an effective budget presentation? Budget presentations should connect performance metrics and rationale to request for adding additional fund. That means if we are asking for additional funds, we need to justify it and we need to show the performance. When funds are increased, how will the extra money translate into enhancement? That should also be considered. If funding for additional staff is approved, in what ways will service be approved? So if we are asking for additional money, we need to explain how the services will be improved and what are the additional services that we are planning to provide in future. Ensure that the budgeting authority can visualize in practical terms how the financial support enhances operations. Is the budget proposal well balanced? Decision makers are more inclined to approve budget proposals that demonstrate a balance among funding, expenditure, and performance. Therefore, in this unit, what we have learned? We have learned the different features of financial management. We learned about different estimation techniques. We learned about budget and what are the features of a good budget proposal. After this unit, we will be able to draw a budget plan for the libraries, maintaining its goal and keeping in mind its users and the performance we want to achieve. Like all these figures should be considered and also the justification should be provided. I have also given some exercises in the slides like MCQs. We already know which method sets a minimum amount per capita that is considered necessary to provide standard library services. We already know it is per capita method. Which method assumes that authorities provide sufficient funding for libraries from their regular budgets and the certain minimum limits are set. It is proportional method. I have given also some short questions like what are the methods of estimating finance for libraries that you already know. It is per capita method, proportional method and method of details. What are the sources of finance of the public library and information centers and mention the principles of library expenses. References, I have given some references which will be useful for further studies. So from this unit, we already understood the different aspects of financial management systems, its characteristics, budget, financial estimation techniques, and how all these aspects can be implied in library and information center in a well effective manner. Thank you.